The contents of the following program are not intended to substitute for the advice of your healthcare provider, and the producers of this series assume no liability for the use or misuse of the material presented. Creation or evolution, design or random chance. They say it all began with a big bang. But when we look at the amazing human body, the answer is obvious. The complexity of the design exceeds anything man has ever made. The body could only have been designed by the master designer we read about in the Bible. Divine design.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Divine Design. And I'm Patty Barnes, and I'm here at Heartland College. And I have with me a few special guests. They are professionals in the field of childbirth. We're so happy to have you here today. I'd like to introduce them, and they're going to share with us some of their experience in what their clients most frequently ask questions. Let's start with Beth. Beth, you're from Spokane, Washington?
Yes.
She used to work in a birthing center for 13 years, right? And then started your own practice, and what is it called?
Birth by Design.
And that's a really great name. So about 20 years of experience you've had.
Close.
Okay. And then we have Dr. Sherry Lou Fernandez. She's an OB-GYN or gynecologist from the Philippines.
Yes.
And now also a certified professional midwife. And she's here at Heartland College, and she's actually teaching midwifery curriculum. So welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Heather from Nashville, Tennessee. And Heather Wilson is a certified professional midwife. And let's see, you started back in the 80s?
79.
79?
Dr. Agatha Thrash.
With Dr. Agatha Thrash, all right. And you had your practice in
1983.
1983 in Nashville.
In Nashville.
And now you're trying to retire on us.
Trying to retire.
Then we have Talitha Mills. She's also from Nashville, Tennessee. And you first started with helping Heather.
At UT Pines.
Okay.
Had the training there also with Dr. Agatha and a nurse named Heidi.
Okay. But so, and you are also a certified professional midwife.
Yes.
Well, welcome, ladies. We are very thankful for you to be here. It was such a sacrifice to come out here and do this for us. Okay, Beth, let me begin with you. You've worked in birthing centers and home birth settings. How would you determine what is a good candidate for either setting?
That's a great question, because it's really important that the right women are hooked up, you know, with midwives. We don't want high-risk women in any way, for the woman's sake as well as the midwives' sake. So when we initially meet with a pregnant woman, we go over her health history and her birth history to make sure she's low risk and a good candidate. Some of the things on that list that we go over are if she has high blood pressure, if she has diabetes, if she's a smoker or has obesity. These things are all going to raise her risks.
Yes.
If she has in her birth history a history of preterm labors or preterm births, or more than one cesarean section, and different midwives vary a little bit on their protocols as to what is safe for them depending on their own experience.
Yes.
And so then once a woman is deemed low risk and is accepted into care for out of hospital birth, then there are other things that can come up during her prenatal course that could at that time risk her out, even up through the labor. Some of those things might be if she develops preeclampsia, which is a condition with high blood pressure as well as other things. If she has uncontrolled gestational diabetes. If something would show up in an ultrasound showing the placenta's in a bad position or a problem with the baby. So all of these things could come up. So just because a woman is accepted initially doesn't mean necessarily that she'll continue all the way through to the birth.
And you do what they call a referral.
Right, and then at that point we may have to refer to see a doctor, or if need be, transfer her care altogether. But those things are rare.
Yeah.
Most women are healthy and can have, with good lifestyle things,
good prenatal care.
Yes, good prenatal care, can have a healthy pregnancy and a good delivery.
Okay. Dr. Fernandez, you have done a lot of cesarean sections. We did an earlier episode on cesareans. And I just want to know your take on having a vaginal birth after a cesarean, or a trial of labor after a cesarean section.
Actually, if you're going to say that I specialized in cesarean sections, it would tickle me, and because we would sometimes race to see who was faster in doing the cesarean sections. I'm not really proud that we were doing that, but it happened, you know, and I face it, and every day I pray that I won't go back to things like that. Anyway, when I was in my residency training early in the 90s to the mid-90s, around that time the United States started doing vaginal births, and the Philippines followed right after the United States. So around my residency training, we started doing vaginal births after C-sections. And they found out that vaginal births were very safe after the C-sections, at least. Then we were told that you just don't do C-sections without knowing how the previous C-section was done. So there are C-sections such as the ones that they cut straight into the contracting portion of the uterus, you call the classical section. You cannot do a C-section, you cannot do a birth after that, a normal birth after that.
Because it's higher risk then.
Yeah, it's high risk the uterus can burst.
Rupture.
Or if you're able to rule out the possibility of the woman having a malformed pelvis, or like the placenta is the head of the baby, as in previa. So when you rule out all the reasons why a cesarean section should be done, then you can do a vaginal birth. You can have what you call the TOLAC, the trial of labor after cesarean section. Well, because cesarean sections after births after C-sections were relatively safe now, then they came and got into the bandwagon and did all sorts of interventions with the VBAC or the TOLAC patients. Then we now had a V backlash. Where when they had a peak around the 1990s, and now the obstetricians are scared to do VBACs because of this mismanagement of the TOLACs and resulting, bad results for the baby and the mom. So now they're scared, they're really scared to do VBACs. But really, if you are ruling out with honesty all those previous classical section and all those other things that are indications which are absolute, then you can safely do a vaginal birth.
Heather, I get a lot of questions about ultrasounds. Are they safe? How do you feel about that?
Well, Patty, ultrasounds have been used for over 40 years now. And so far, after 40 years, they have an excellent safety record. Prenatal ultrasound testing uses high-frequency sound waves. And those sound waves are inaudible to the human ear. And those sound waves bounce off the baby, and the echoes are recorded and transformed into photographic images and videos. The mothers are used to going to a technician and getting a topical ultrasound or transvaginal ultrasound. They're also familiar with, in the hospital, where they use the external fetal monitor. And at home, we use the handheld Doppler. All those use sound waves. There's no radiation as in X-rays. There's no magnetic resonance as in MRIs. So far, they have no evidence that these ultrasounds are harmful to the fetus or the baby. So now, if and there's a big if, they're used according to guidelines. And those guidelines are, it should be done by a trained professional.
Yes.
It should be medically necessary, and it should not last any more than 40 to 30, at the most 40 minutes.
Okay.
So the ultrasound does give off a slight heat to the tissues. So a prolonged use by a non-trained professional could raise the risk, you know, a little bit, which have consequences that are unknown at the time.
Well, Talitha, you get ladies from time to time that are Rh negative, and I kind of feel it's important to explain why is a RhoGAM shot important for those Rh negative?
Very important. The RhoGAM shot is a sterile solution that's made from human blood plasma and is given to Rh negative moms in pregnancy. And it's good to know, for them to know, that the Rh factor is a protein that is found in most people's red blood cells.
Okay.
And those who do not have that protein on their red blood cells are considered Rh negative. The Rh factor does not usually present a problem.
Okay.
Unless you become pregnant or you need a blood transfusion in the event of a trauma or something. And in pregnancy, there's a condition that is Rh incompatibility between the blood of the mother and the blood of the fetus, especially, of course, a positive fetus and a negative mom.
Okay.
If this blood mixes, and it can mix in events like miscarriage or trauma again, or
by
at
accident.
delivery, or by accident, it can mix. It doesn't usually mix, but yeah, it can mix. And when this mixing occurs, the Rh negative mom's blood responds in a way to produce antibodies, and these antibodies really can destroy the Rh positive fetus's blood cells.
Okay.
And so the Rh shot actually prevents the Rh mom's immune system from making those antibodies. And so basically it's been wonderful to have that. Since 1968, the FDA actually approved it, and since then countless lives have been saved.
Childbirth is such a ministry when you're able to help as a midwife. And it's such a blessing when you can lead people into the faith. And I just want to ask y'all, have you experienced that?
You know, I'm thinking of one recent labor where it was a long labor. She was in the birth pool, and the husband, we were talking about spiritual things. They're Christians, and the husband said to me, "Do you know that Jesus really wasn't born on Christmas Day?" And I said, "Yes, I know that. I think it's true. I don't really think he was born on December 25th. And then he said, "And do you know that the real Sabbath is not on Sunday?" And I said to him, "Yes." I said, "You are preaching to the choir. I am a Seventh-day Adventist." Well, he didn't know what a Seventh-day Adventist was. He'd never heard of that. But and I asked him, "How did you come to that conclusion?" And he said, "Just by doing my own research online." And so I gave him a great controversy, and I know that I've planted a lot of seeds.
Praise the Lord.
When people come back to me for a second or a third baby, they remember
They do,
that
years later.
that I go to church on Saturday. And so I know that these things people are remembering.
What a blessing it has been for you all to be here today. I just want to thank you so very much for taking the time to come and share your experience with us. And I want to invite the viewing audience to please join us again for more of the Divine Design series.